All right, thank you. Thank you, and welcome everybody to this evening's Foxborough Board of Selectmen's October 30th meeting. I will go through the agenda briefly. At 7 o'clock, we have citizens' input. And actually, before citizens' input, under topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance, we're going to do an update, a brief update on the hurricane and the status of the town. We'll do a chairman's update at 7:05. At 7:10, through the town manager, we'll be discussing the South Coast Rail Technical Assistance Award for fiscal year 13. At 7:15, with DPW Director Roger Hill and town manager, we're going to have a presentation and an update on the pavement management system. At 7:45, under the town manager, we'll be reviewing the special town meeting warrant articles, and the board will be voting either to move them forward or not move them forward. But we will not be voting on the articles tonight. At 8 o'clock, we have scheduled the craft organization negotiating team discussion. At 8:30, with Labor Council, discussing the firefighter grievance regarding the non-payment of detail pay. And at 8:45, we will enter into an executive session to discuss real property negotiations and collective bargaining. And we have in between several action items. Ginny, you want to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kevin, it's just a quick question before we start. I know we have some guests here. Are they making a presentation, or do you want me to say a few words?
If you would, Mr. Chairman, say a few words about our guests, that'd be wonderful.
Okay,
Thank you.
I know. Just briefly, we have several people from Pakistan that have come into Foxborough to experience Foxborough and experience the municipal governments. There's 3 individuals. I see 2 tonight. Just 2? Okay. And they're civil servants, and we welcomed them this morning at a Board of Selectmen's meeting, and they were brought around through town through different entities, department heads. I know Jack Othelette, I spoke to him a little while ago, and he was very happy with the discussions that you've had and some of the things that you've seen. So I guess on behalf of the Foxborough Board of Selectmen and the town, welcome again to Foxborough. And tonight you'll experience a public meeting. And we don't have any public hearings, but a public meeting where individuals are allowed to speak, and we vote on different topics, and should last a couple hours. So, again, thank you for coming. Under topics not anticipated, if we could get an update on the hurricane and the status where we stand right now.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. We, as of a couple of hours ago, when we sent the last message out, we were at 96% power back on. There were 3 roads in town comprising the majority of the 4% left, which is about 340 odd homes. Those 3 neighborhoods are Wayne Road, Lakeview Road, and about 1/2 of the trailer park on Route 1. We had a very high confidence level because there was no real damage, tree down or anything like that, to any of those. So we're pretty confident that what the problem was is that switches were tripped out either by a branch hitting it, arcing, tripping out the circuit breaker, and then falling away so that there was no damage, but the breaker tripped, or they were manually tripped out because someplace else had a wire down or something like that. So they were going out there, and as we speak, they may be updated. I don't know if, Tom's here. Okay, so Tom may have an update for you. Before he goes there, the other issue, vulnerable populations in town, citizens with particular medical or other needs. As of this afternoon, we'd identified only one that still had no power, and that person had friends and family that were taking care of them. So no shelter, no evacuations were necessary, and we were rechecking in the trailer park because there's quite a senior population, including a couple of people that are on our vulnerable population list, and we didn't frankly know if they were in the section with part of the section without. So we were checking on that, And if they needed help, then we were prepared to do that. And if they didn't, then that's fine too. So that's kind of where we concluded the day. And Tom can update you on where we are as of immediately.
Okay. Well, again, I'd like to say thank you for all the cooperation the town has given, all the cooperation the town has given National Grid. I made an apology to the Board of Selectmen this morning. I'll do it again. Any kind of a power outage is a terrible thing, and it's a really bad inconvenience for everybody. So on behalf of National Grid, I'd like to apologize to the citizens, too, for any of the inconvenience that you've had due to this storm. To get to the update, we're still at the 344 customers out. We do have somebody sitting waiting for a crew right now on Old Colony, and the reason why that's important is because that road is blocked at the end. We have to remove a tree that's on a wire, and of course the public safety concern there is the fact that we couldn't get fire apparatus back there if we needed to fight a fire. So that's top priority. What I have been doing is trying to get some sort of an ETR on the trailer park, and also the majority of the customers that are on Lakeview. So I'm still working on trying to get that.
Okay.
What about Wayne?
And on Wayne, too. Because Wayne is, people can drive, but the whole street is out. What they did there is they isolated the street from Mechanic Street so that they could get that up again. But they just need to come in and hang new wires. All the wires are down.
Okay, that large tree just took them all down.
The trees are gone, and actually Highway's been very helpful throughout the storm. They've actually done a lot of the heavy clearing for us, which has really helped our crews a lot.
Okay.
So, Tom, are there trucks at each of those major sites right now?
No, there is not. Right now, one crew is en route to Old Colony. While it sounds bad, some of the towns around here actually have outages much worse. So what they did is they took the crews out of Foxborough. They did send them to another town, but we do have one crew coming to town. So what I'm hoping is that that'll start to build again. Always, trying to be really your liaison, trying to see if I could push more crews into Foxborough. That's what I've been trying to do. So while not good news, it's the honest truth. So I wanted to share that with the board as well.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? That's it? Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Just to close, Mr. Chairman, two good notes and one bad one. I'll do the bad first and end with the good. The bad news continues to be the Union Loop, as the board's aware, and the problem that it obviously wasn't fixed, and we don't have any real reassurance at this point that it will be. I won't repeat what I said this morning, but I know it's the board's primary concern to find out what happened and to get some assurance going forward. We've issued an invitation through Tom to Marcy Reed, President, to come to the board and make an explanation and also engage in a discussion of how we're going to find out once and for all what the problem is and get it fixed. On the good news side, it's very clear that the department heads learned a tremendous amount from our two experiences last year. The response this year was incredibly fast, extremely efficient. The department heads did a marvelous amount of work, and that is primarily due to Roger Hatfield, our fire chief and EMD director's good work. And I think all those department heads, and Roger in particular, deserve a thank you from the public. They did a tremendous job. This is the most efficient emergency response I've seen in my career. It really was very quick and very efficient. The other thing is, I want to thank Tom. It's always important. The poor guy comes here as National Grid's representatives, and we beat hell out of him all the time. And that, it's just the job, Tom. It's okay. But we are so fortunate to have this gentleman at a personal level. He's incredibly knowledgeable, incredibly experienced, and he's a real advocate for us. I've watched him work. And Deputy Chief Begley was his constant companion and sidekick. Actually, I don't know who's sidekick, but together they did a great job cataloging all the down wires and getting the responses to him. So it's been a pleasure having you, and I hope you never retire. Then again, I hope we never need to have you here again, too. But
Work's not done, so.
Right. It's
so
still
those are good
344
news things.
Okay, and I'll just spend a second summarize, and I agree with everything you said, and I also wanted to extend thank you to the department heads. I remember last year we had meetings to talk about who was coming to meetings, who was going to initiate meetings. This year it was, and I hope it doesn't become a tradition, but this year it was very succinct, very efficient, and we got updated very efficiently, and I appreciate, and also the volunteers that assisted with all the departments. It was very good to see. I did come down hard on National Grid today, and I did mean it, and again, Tom, it's not you, but I have put them on the agenda for the upcoming meeting, and I do expect to have hopefully Marcy here, if not somebody else, but it's on the agenda, and it's going to move forward with or without National Grid, because I think it's that important to discuss the bigger picture of the efforts that Foxborough did in town. Got to a point and we were just kind of standing and waiting again. So I think that's what we're going to try to figure out, so that doesn't happen on the Union Loop level. So if anyone else have anything to say, and I think Linda, you just said there's also 300 and something odd people still out.
That's the thing. I just want to remind folks that there are the 344 that are out there, and I know how frustrated I would be. So I would hope that you are keeping in contact with them as any way that you can, to make sure they're as up to date as they can. That, we're hoping by 9 o'clock tonight. We're hoping by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Something, just give them something so that they know whether they have to do something with their food, their kids, their whatever. Just
so you know, Linda, we've been still doing media releases out through the patch, through the cable, and
again, if you don't have.
But again, so we're trying to use all the medias that we have to make sure
Right,
that they
but
know
I'm
we
just
have
saying,
time.
if, I didn't have, my computer had gone down, my cell phone was down, my house, so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Under citizens input, if anyone has anything to add, if we just ask that you come to the microphone and introduce yourself for the record. Dan?
Okay, if I sit here?
Sure.
Thank you. Dan Murphy with the Craft Group. And I know you have an agenda item for later this evening, and I appreciate you letting me come in under citizens input just to spend a few minutes, hopefully have some good news about the later agenda item. As you know, we've been working with the town now for about 3 years to try to do a comprehensive deal that would include water and sewer and Patriot Place. And it's actually been about 3 years. I think we were first approached by the Selectmen in December of 2009, so we're coming up on the 3-year anniversary. Over that period of time, we spent a lot of time meeting with individuals, committees, boards, both publicly and privately. And initially when we met, we were very far apart in coming up with, a deal. We worked with Kevin and Selectman Harrington and Phil Henderson in around April of 2011. We thought we were very close to a deal. In fact, we crafted a term sheet, but ultimately the board then didn't vote for it, so we continued to talk. Back in the summer, we met with a group headed by Linda Walsh, a public group, and exchanged a lot of good information back and forth, but ultimately after 3 meetings, the town dissolved that committee. And now just last month, we met with the group in private, with Mark and Lorraine as part of that group, and had one meeting again, I think exchanged a lot of good information, but ultimately, due to the constraints that you were all under with the municipality, with the open meeting laws, that committee was, rightly so, dissolved. We spent a lot of time looking at the last meeting on the 16th of the month, we realize that meeting and the prior meetings, there's been hours of debate at this table about whether to meet with us at all, whether it should be in open session, in private session, if members of the board should be part of it, or residents should be part of it. And I think that what it's done for us, Jim, is it's given us a chance to take these last 2 weeks and pause a bit and say, we are, unfortunately, no closer to a deal than we were back 3 years ago. So not here to, point fingers, blame. Actually wanted to come here as opposed to just sending a letter. I respect this board, and I say with all sincerity, we appreciate you making efforts to meet with us, but at this point, we don't want to waste the board's time. We don't want to waste our time, and we just don't see like there's a likely solution. So we respectfully ask you to take no action on the negotiating committee. Certainly look forward to working with you in the future on whatever projects may come down the road. It's just for this one right now, we respectfully, are withdrawing our efforts.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. In my lack of response is not because I don't have opinions and I don't want to start the dialogue. It's under citizens' input. If it's okay with the board, I think we should talk a little bit during that agenda item. We can talk about it when we get to that point. So, but I do appreciate Dan's candid presentation, and let's take a little breath and we'll talk about it later in the evening. Okay, I'll offer a couple updates just to kind of give it. I'm sorry. Is it? Yep, Mrs. Kennedy. Mrs. Sullivan Kennedy. Janet.
Hi. The only reason I'm here is I had sent an email to the town moderator and to some of you. Two of you, at least one acknowledged and one sent an email back to me. The whole thing is someone who is on the advisory committee. I can't use the word because I don't think you can use it on TV anyways. But they lumped a group of us together and used a word that they should not have used. And I really do hope the town moderator is not giving a professional pass to this person. Because I did call the Board of Ethics to find out what could be done. They said the only way that person can be removed from the advisory committee is if the town moderator removes them. And what he said isn't very nice. And I did send emails. I know some people don't respond. I understand. But really, somebody needs to talk to the town moderator because that's not right.
Okay. I'll just take I think the topic that you sent to the board, my response, and I'm not sure if the rest of us share it, but that's an issue with the advisory committee. It's an autonomous board and is very strong in separate walls between the advisory committee and the selectmen for very good reasons. So I think I directed another person also to bring it up with the advisory committee, the chairman of the advisory, or the town moderator, and that's the avenue to take. It's really not in the purview. Again, it's a different board, and it's a different. I know it's a different board that's appointed by the town moderator. So it doesn't belong at this table. But I understand why you're bringing it. But it's a totally separate board and separate topic. So, anyone else from citizens input? All right. A couple things just to give you a snapshot of what's coming up. We have a special Selectmen's meeting next Monday. We've got a series of 6 liquor violations, so we're going to handle them 3 next Monday, where we're not meeting on Tuesday. November 13th, just to remind everybody, we have a tax classification hearing, and we had asked the businesses and the residents to feel free to talk to us or bring to our attention their feelings on the split tax rate. We adjusted it a little bit last year, and it was the first time it was done. We said we wanted to do it for a year, see what the good and the bad came out of that. So I haven't heard much back from the businesses, but again, that's on the 13th. So if you want to let us know your feelings on that, that's going to be a half-hour hearing. We also have a joint meeting with the school committee on that November 13th as well. On November 20th, we have another special selectmen's meeting just to deal with 3 more liquor violations. So that would be the last 3 of the 6. November 27th, the Board of Selectmen is going to take action on the warrant articles. Tonight, you're going to see us either voting on the warrant articles to bring them forward or not to bring them forward. Then it starts the process formally with the advisory committee, and then we'll come in on November 27th and do a formal review and vote on those warrant articles. And that's all in anticipation of the town meeting, the fall town meeting, which is December 11th. It's a Monday. A couple other items that we need to put on the agenda, and I've been reminded, the Strong Town Managers Act. We do want to talk about that, and we will put that on the agenda. And also a topic that got brought up either at the last meeting or the one before on the merits of having our annual town meeting in May on a Saturday. Town meeting on a Saturday, giving the ability to get the senior population easier access to the town meeting rather than putting it on at night, which goes late into the evening. So I'm going to put that on the agenda shortly to probably right after the December meeting, so we can talk about that where it's fresh in our minds. The Planning Board is offering this Thursday, in 2 days, from 7 to 8:30 in this room, they're sponsoring a presentation by the Metropolitan Area Planning Council on the parking in downtown, the situation where there's parking and where there's potential for additional parking, and really what the need is for parking. And that may dovetail a little bit into the master plan that they've been working. So again, just to remind you, that's Thursday at this room by the Planning Board. So that's let me see what we got here. Yeah, why don't we if it's okay with the board, we'll take one action item out of sequence. Roger, if that's okay, just hold back the pavement management where it's a little lengthy. And I see, is it Anthony Rondo? All right. If you wanted to come up, just so you don't have to sit here till late at night. This is an application for a junk dealer, second-hand article license, valid through December 31st, 2012.
Yeah, it would have to. I think it would have to anyway.
So if you guys want to pull that out of your packet.
The last action item.
And maybe you can spend just a quick minute explaining what you're applying for.
Sure. A junk dealer's license, as I understand it, allows you to buy scrap, gold, silver, precious gems. We wouldn't be looking to buy anything other than those items. I think technically it may allow you to buy other types of used or second-hand items. But it's basically a store that would be purchasing gold, silver, diamonds, jewelry, etc.
So this is a new establishment?
It would be a new establishment, yes.
50 Central Street?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Obviously, that business has a certain clientele that likes to get rid of stolen merchandise. How do you prepare and...
I have a business now, a second-hand Cape Cod gold and silver and sandwich. You're absolutely right. That's an issue in this business. Anything that I buy is photographed. I get a picture ID from anybody that sells anything. I fill out a form with a description. I'll take a peek at that if you want. Description of the item, the ID info, photograph the ID, so that in an effort to prevent people from coming in with stolen things. The business that I have on the Cape I've had for 4 years. I have a very good working relationship with the police department in Sandwich. I know they would speak very highly of me. The Chief Whack has, on numerous occasions, said the couple of people who buy gold and silver in town have been an asset to them actually apprehending people who've stolen things and who've done break-ins, so it's how you run your business, truthfully. My advertising is all geared to 40 to 70-year-olds. I advertise down there. I plan to do the same thing. Advertise on TV stations which cater to older people. It's not a store to buy stolen goods.
No, I understand that. I just wanted to know how you the precautions you take. It's going to happen. I mean, there's no doubt
Record
about it.
keeping, I keep meticulous records. Everything is logged into a log which is available to the police department if they want to come in and see.
Video.
Pardon me?
You do video surveillance.
Video, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. That's it.
Any other questions?
I just have a question. These items that come into your store, are they for, melting down disposal, or are they for resale?
99% of what comes in is melted down, yes.
But you will be selling these?
Mostly what I sell now is just coins, if people bring in coins. I don't resell jewelry items out of the store that I have now, and I really wouldn't propose to resell jewelry items.
Will you be doing anything like on consignment?
No.
Or to get, like pawnbroking or anything?
No,
like
I've never
that?
done anything, any consignment, no.
No pawnbroking or?
No, what? Sorry.
Pawnbroking?
Oh,
No.
no. That's a separate license.
Okay.
You need a state, I believe, you need
You're
a state
correct.
license to
Pawnbroker's license.
to be a pawnbroker.
Okay.
I'm just glad that it got verified tonight because I had visions in my head of, like, Sanford and Son truck, like, with all this big old metal coming out. Honestly, because there wasn't enough information for me. I'm like, I was trying to figure it out, so I'm glad you explained exactly what it is. So.
There's some pictures there which come off my website. I have a what I think is a very nice store, nicely furnished, clean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just had to say,
not
like,
not Sanford and Son.
It left, to South Shore metals, and I'm like, just,
No.
so.
There's a simple condition to put on the license that will cure that, and when the appropriate time is, Chairman, I'll suggest it to the board.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Motion to approve application for junk dealer second-hand article license valid through 12/31/12 to Anthony Rondo, South Shore Metals.
Second.
At
12/31/13?
It's 12 there. I
Yeah,
think
I
it
think
expires
she-
at the end of the year and be renewal as of the 1st. Like every
So do you
license.
understand that?
I do.
Okay, so this is only for a couple months?
Correct.
And then you come back and we do it for the
Located at 50 Central Street.
second.
Okay. Under motion made, seconded, further discussion? Kevin?
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest to the board that you consider two conditions. One, a review and approval by the police chief. Because this isn't a license that we don't do very often, it was not sent to him, but I think it would be prudent for him to be able to make a call to the place where your other business is and verify it, because this kind of license has, and no aspersions intended, sir.
I would welcome that.
These licenses do have tremendous potential for abuse, and we just want to have that buttoned up, I think. And secondly, the condition that there be no outside storage of metal. And that's the way you solve the problem of junk. Now, in this case, it's clearly not what the gentleman has in mind,
Right.
but that buttons it up unequivocally.
Are both those conditions reasonable to
Absolutely.
you?
No problem at all.
So no putting gold outside.
Right. Okay. We'll be careful about that.
Okay, so motion was made, seconded. You want to amend your motion to add those conditions?
Amended the motion to add that no outside storage of any kind, and that, subject to the police chief's authorization.
And the license will be held here, Mr. Chairman, until the police chief is able to do that with you, sir. But that should be very quick.
Sure, fair enough.
Okay. All right, any more discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Congratulations, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a safe ride home.
Thanks.
So it's in our pack, we can sign this, but you'll just hold it until the chief
You
gets
can
back.
sign it, it'll be held in the office until that comes back. The chief's letter will be put in your correspondence file, so you'll see it did come back and he approved it.
Very good. Okay, back on, the next topic on the agenda is the update on the pavement management system.
Do we do
Actually, the
I'm
South
sorry,
Coast
I'm
Road-
sorry, the South Coast Rail Technical Assistance for the year 13.
Mr. Chairman, Sharon's here to explain, but just my comment of congratulations to her once again. Our outstanding town planner, Sharon Lawson, has obtained another grant for the town. This one to study downtown revitalization and a housing production plan. Sharon continues to do outstanding work, and congratulations, and over to you.
Well, thank you. I met with you on the 24th of July and discussed the application. We were notified on the 10th we were one of 15 communities to receive a grant this year. I detailed what it's for. It's to review our downtown zoning and the regulatory framework in the downtown. We want to be able to implement our housing production plan, accommodate growth in the downtown, and be prepared for new development when sewer capacity becomes available. Subsequent to the 24th, the Selectmen, the Planning Board, and the Sewer and Water Commissioners had a really good meeting about the new sewer plant. And we really talked about creating sewer service areas and trying to restrict sewer to the areas that need remediation or where it would accommodate economic development. And if we'd had that discussion before the 24th of July, that would have been in the grant. So I called MAPC and said, could we change this? I can do the zoning. I just need a couple weeks. But they indicated that they have a district local technical assistance program, which is state money to help communities that they fund. And I met with two of their senior staff, and they indicated that this would be a really good project. And they would have some sense of whether we could expect that before the town meeting, which I think would be really important to reassure people. And my last point was made much more eloquently by Jim about the parking workshop. So I thank you again. It's pretty easy when there's a 50% chance of getting the money, but I'll take the credit.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you to the board as well. I know you guys work very well together. Thanks. Good news. Okay. Roger, do you want to come and speak on the pavement management system?
Haven't seen you for a while.
A couple hours anyways.
First of all, I
Different
have
without
to
a chainsaw.
apologize. Tony Garrow from Beta was going to do a PowerPoint for us, but
Okay.
his parents are in New Jersey and they're missing, and he's on his way down
Oh,
here, so
Lord.
we're going to have to get along with a handout tonight, but
Understandable.
I think it'll work. You all had a chance to see the presentation we made in August.
Thank you.
And this kind of will just follow up on what you saw before.
Give a couple more.
Yeah.
Sorry for the interruption.
I have one more. Okay. So what we looked at in August, as you know, was we looked at all the roads in town by segment, and the segments are between intersections, of course. And each segment was rated with a road service rating, and the town scored pretty well for a town that never had a pavement maintenance management plan before. We had an average score of 74 out of 100, which isn't too bad. The follow-up that I've done since then, the first thing we wanted to do is we wanted to, as town employees, we wanted to physically verify the segment ratings and the methods of construction that were recommended by the consultant. So we've gone out and we've ridden all the roads and we've examined all the segments and made I would say we probably adjusted 10% of the construction methods, but they were pretty close to being spot on with what they recommended. The second thing I did is, once I looked at the plan, I said, well, I can't do the roads with the AC pipe on them in the first 2 years, because I got to give the water department a chance to get the AC pipe replaced in those roads. So I eliminated roadways with AC pipe from the first 2 years. I want to defer the signage and sidewalk component of the pavement management plan for until 2013 and 2014 respectively. We're going to have to do those, but we'll be able to do them next year and the year after. And the changes in the federal law on signage will allow us to have a full year on top of that to be able to make the adjustments that they are going to require us to make. And finally, I wanted to develop funding options so the board could look at more than one option for funding this. It would seem, when you look at this on the face of it, that we would be best served by doing the worst first and not spending money on the roads that are in really good shape. But that's really not the case. You have to kind of spread the money across the board, because each year that you do no maintenance on a piece of road, on a segment of road, it deteriorates by 2 points on the RSR up to 10 years. And after 10 years, it deteriorates even more. So we looked at it from the standpoint of what would be best to do. And in developing the funding assumptions, I looked at, I had to make some assumptions about the funding. So the assumptions I made are that the meals tax revenue that we would receive would remain constant. It may not do that, it may increase, but there's no way I can predict that. Secondly, that Chapter 90 remains constant, and if you all know about Chapter 90, some years it'll go for 5 or 6 years at the same level, and then all of a sudden they'll jump it up like they did last year. But there's no consistency to the way Chapter 90 comes to us. But pretty much since the revenue from Chapter 90 is derived from the gasoline tax, and the price of gasoline is still pretty high, I believe we're going to do okay on Chapter 90 for the next 5 or 10, 15 years. And it may go up. It may well go up. But I can't assume that. I assume that construction costs for road escalate at about 6.5% a year, and that's what they're going up. It's a kind of mostly a fuel-oriented cost, because we're using petroleum byproducts and everything has to be transported, and the machines that do the work have to be fueled. So road construction costs pretty much are based on the fuel price. And finally, that bonding costs should be no higher than 3.5%. That's what Randy used recently when he talked to you about the town hall repairs. I think the bonds may come lower than that if we bond, but you know, that's the assumption that I made. Why did I make them? Okay, the meals tax revenue may increase, but there's no assurance that it would. Historically, Chapter 90 has been periodic, and that's the best way I can describe it. Construction costs reflect fuel costs, and same assumption was made by the finance director. So I think I'm on the same page as Randy. Other financing factors, we can't do more than $2 million in a given year with the staff that we have. And besides that, we would tear up too many roads in town, and it would be a mess around town if we tried to do more than $2 million a year worth of repairs, just beyond our staff capability. The road service rating deteriorates 2 points if we do nothing for the first 10 years, and then it goes down faster. The sooner repairs are made and the sooner the road service rating and deterioration rate will improve. And then if you go to your last page, you'll see the graph that I have on the last page, and that's the two funding options graphically. The yellow line represents a level funding at $1 million a year, which is about the sum of our Chapter 90 plus half the meals tax. The second one represents what if we bonded the meals tax, and what?
So half the meals tax bond or the full meals tax?
Half the meals tax. And we did a lot of work in the first 3 years, really got a big bang for our buck by getting the road service rating up over 80, which is really high. And then it kind of levels out, but that assumes no additional funding. If there were additional funds from Chapter 90 or from the meals tax, we would continue to improve the road service rating, but we'd be improving from a much higher level than we're at now. What this would do is it would really make this town look different in about 3 years in terms of the roads that are out there. One thing I did do this year is I attacked the worst first. The section of 106 that I paved was the worst arterial in town. It had a road service rating of 26 out of 100. Now it has a road service rating of 100 out of 100. Same thing with the piece of Cocasset Street that I did. That was the second, well, I shouldn't say that. Pumping Station Road was the second worst road in town, and I took care of that. And Cocasset Street was the third worst road in town, and I took care of a good piece of that, but there's a lot more to do on Cocasset Street. But we really do have some big needs in town, and the fact that we have a part of the meals tax to do this is really, in my opinion, a terrific thing. So my recommendation is to bond, but the board can choose to do whichever way they'd like to do it. I think we can keep up with it under any case. I think the improvements that you'd see in the bonding versus the level funding would show up real fast. By the way, the level funding isn't really level because of the increase in construction costs, and you can see what it does is it goes up, peaks out, and then starts going down. Now, whether that happens or not, I'm not that good with the crystal ball, but that's what it projects anyway. And that's it.
Seems pretty straightforward, any of the two options. Questions from the board?
I got a couple. Kevin, you might be able to answer this, I'm sure. Two questions I have is, what if state legislators decide to pool the meals tax from all the towns into one and then divvy it up amongst the towns and communities that don't have restaurants, entertainment facilities like Foxborough, and then they, you know, just like the lottery, they pool it, now you don't have the money to pay for this bond. That one comes right to mind, because I've always said I expect the legislation to do this in the future. So ever since the meals tax got approved, I figured that this was coming down the road. Are we protected against that if we bond?
No, you would and you wouldn't. Here's why. This plan assumes that we take the amount that we're currently drawing from the meals tax, which is around $300,000 or $400,000 a year. We take that number as it exists next year, which would probably be more like 4.25, because it's growing pretty rapidly. So we take the 4.25, and however much debt 4.25 a year for 15 years buys, that's how much debt we'd levy. Now let's assume the state comes along and they say, we're going to do something different. And every time I say that'll never happen, the legislature surprises me. So I think it's a valid concern. We would still have the debt. And we would, now over here, untouched in Roger's plan, is $500,000 a year of state aid for road maintenance. I do not believe they would allow us to spend that state aid on debt service, because we just don't do that. So we'd still have $500,000 a year to spend on road maintenance, even with the bonded plan. But we'd own that $425,000 in debt, and we'd have to pay it out of other sources.
If it was repealed.
Because there's no way to guarantee it without that revenue stream. There is some risk there. It's really up to the board to assess. You know, you're the political folks, not me, so it's kind of up to you to assess, is that an acceptable political risk or is it unacceptable? Roger and I, and mind you, this has not been vetted yet by Randy with the certifying bank to get their opinion on this. We'd want to do that. All we wanted to do tonight was present the concept to you and see if you wanted explored further. I happen to think it's very intriguing. It's got some interesting. This is a great idea. We're not the first to do this, but we would probably be the first to commit meals tax money to it. So that's something different, and it's kind of needs your thought and approval process.
Yeah, just.
By the way, absent the meals tax money, I would not represent to you that we can afford to do this, because with the other debt that we're considering loading, the turf project, the town hall potentially, the water sewer debt. Now, that water sewer debt is separate because that's leveraged by an enterprise fund, so it's not considered a general obligation bond. But still, this would probably be too much. We wouldn't be able to do this. We've got the ability to do it, frankly, within our finance plan, but I wouldn't recommend it, and I don't believe Randy was a certifying bank. So it's kind of use the meals tax or don't do this. Go back to the $1 million a year plan.
So all we're asking Randy to is to explore it.
We just want to know if you think this has got enough interest for us to continue with the exploration, put together debt service schedules, and really start to flesh this out a lot more thoroughly.
Okay. All set.
I agree with Mac's concerns, because I spoke with Representative Barrows a few months ago, and he indicated to me there's a lot of whining up at the State House from communities that do not have the number of restaurants that we have. And my mantra is, it's easier to amend a bill than to pass a bill. And a bill can be amended easily so that we will lose a good portion of our meals tax. So I would suggest that while you're checking with Randy, but also check with Representative Barrows, Senator Timothy, up at the State House, and find out what they hear, if people are still thinking about amending this legislation to let other communities tap into the meals tax from communities like us. I think it's a valid concern.
I'm actually meeting with Jay Monday morning, and so I'll do that.
Okay.
What else?
It might not just be legislation, it might just be the fact that we don't have as many restaurants, you know. It'd be great if we could say that our town has grown and we're adding restaurants and hotels and things, but we're not at this point. So, you know, I'm certainly not ready to vote on it yet, and I get a little nervous when we start talking about bonds for things that we've already kind of discussed, like, you know, the meals tax to go toward. Go ahead, Ray.
I was just going to say I was curious, you know, about the concept of borrowing long-term for a repair situation as opposed to an asset.
Yeah, Chapter 44 of the Municipal Finance Law allows you to borrow for road repair up to, I think, 15 years.
15 years is the max.
That's considered the life cycle of a... Roads are considered a capital asset.
Yeah,
So basically, you're borrowing to make repairs to an asset. Same as replacing a fire truck, if you will.
Okay. Thank you.
I think it's a concept that is probably worth exploring. Basically, you're master planning, fixing the roads over 15 years. You're doing it all at once, bonding it, and then have the funding source. The issues that brings up is, you know, moratoriums. You know, you skimming through this quickly. You know, the asbestos concrete water pipe. You give 2 years, get that up to speed. But then if sewer breaks in 3 or 4 years, not breaks, but comes to fruition, then you've got something that's coming in on brand new roads throughout the town. So things like that, staffing. So I think it's worth exploring, but there's a lot of little pieces that have to come into that.
It's just a concept and an idea that I wanted to put in front of you, because I think it's a good idea to always look at getting these things done as soon and quickly as you can, because once you get them done, they last a long time, especially if you just give them routine maintenance.
And then wouldn't you be married into this process, say, at the end of the 15-year, if your pavement life is 15 or 20 years, then you got to do the whole chunk again versus doing little piecemeal. That's most towns do.
It's 15 or 20 years if you don't do anything with it.
Without maintenance.
But if you crack seal and do the things that need to be done early on in the process, they last a long time.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, just as an example.
The concept is you've got neglected pavement now that hasn't been maintained properly. So the idea is get a large percentage of it up to good standard, then take the $500,000 a year of state money and continue the good, robust maintenance program. And it just gets you to that 85+% level a lot faster. That's the concept. But you're always chasing it because as you do this, the roads begin to deteriorate, and 15 years from now, you got to do another bond or whatever, so it's always a problem.
Okay,
Just
so-
a way to get there faster.
It's a way to get your roads in really great shape quick.
Mhm.
And if you don't want to do that, and if you want to go over time and get them good anyway, either way works. It's just a matter of this way the buck goes a little bit further, that's all.
Okay.
No.
So
No,
I think we need to give them some direction. I mean, you've done some work on this. Does the board want to give the nod to bring the concept through some more scrutiny, some more finance look? Or do we think this is a little bit too much to fathom right now and want to put it off?
doesn't hurt to have Randy investigate it
And
and the
that's
finance
what I'm
department move forward. I mean, Roger's trying to be proactive, and I appreciate that. I just, I'm always concerned with the legislators, what they do to town of Foxborough in the last few years with different other bills. What was the one we had a couple of years ago? We put Timothy on the hot seat with the veterans,
Yep.
or retirees benefits.
Retiree benefit, right.
Yeah, so I mean, and it might be even more prudent to put it towards OPEB. And it's a board discussion. I'm sure AdCom would love to fit in on it, but I think starting the process doesn't hurt at all.
Could you do this, Roger? Could you take this to the AdCom? Let the December meeting go through, give them some breathing time,
Yeah.
and then run this, because I'm interested in the cost implications of all up at
I'd kind
front.
of like to have the PowerPoint, because
Yeah.
it's much more impressive and much more powerful in trying to work it off a narrative like I wrote. Although what I wrote is how the process would work.
Mhm.
And I think we'll also do some bond runs and take a look at exactly how much could we leverage, with the amount of meals tax revenue we've got, because it may not actually, I'm looking at 300, 400, and that may not be enough to get quite the debt service level of what we're talking about here, so we may not be quite at this level anyways. We'll also look at kind of a hybrid. Maybe look at a short-term plan that involves spending a lot of money but only leverages meals tax money for maybe 5 years, which is a shorter horizon that you might feel safer with, and say, well, we're pretty confident they won't change that law for 5 years, so let's do a big hunk for 5 years, pay it off, and then take another look in another 5 years. That's kind of an in-between approach, if you will. So we'll look at different options for you.
Right. And the other thing, too, it has a positive aspect on, putting people back to work. I mean, with the economy the way it is, it's being more proactive to putting, local companies back to work. And so it has a lot of good offsets to it, too, so.
And lastly, you're bringing everything up within the first 5 years to RSR 79, say 80.
Yeah.
Where did that number come from versus 70 or 85, the cost implications from bringing it to a higher level?
Your road service ratings will range from 0 to 100. Okay, 100 is a brand-new road, just completed, like the piece of 106 that we just did.
Yep.
A road service rating of 80 is a really good rating, because the maintenance on a road service rating of 80 and up is only crack sealing. So if we get roads up to a road service rating of 80 in town, it basically is a crack sealing deal after that for a few years. Then, as time goes by, you might have to do some mill and resurface. And that would take place mostly on your major arterials and maybe some collector roads. The back roads, you can continue to crack seal for quite a while, as long as the base is good under the road. What we've got in Foxborough is kind of a mix of things, and remember, these are averages. That's really what they are. And I can pinpoint. One of the things that was mentioned by you, by the board, and I'm not sure who brought it up, but water and sewer, not a problem, because when and if the time comes to do that, those projects can be funded out of water and sewer revenue. They will not be funded out of road revenue. I like to keep the enterprise accounts separate, and I like the enterprise accounts to stand on their own. And I think the board, and I'm sure the water commissioners feel the same way. We the enterprises are for a certain purpose, and that's what the purpose is. So that's where the AC pipe replacement comes in, because it's of great value to the town, not just from a standpoint of replacing it. The stuff is punky, and it's in tough shape. It needs to be replaced, and that need will never go away until we replace it.
It's probably just, I'll be very brief, just to remind the public and the board. I think one of the reasons you brought this forward is because we asked, this was the creation of the DPW. It was putting all the water sewer infrastructure together under one umbrella. And I think we gave you the charge to start master planning and moving forward.
Right.
With, rather than waiting for Mrs. Jones to call us as they need the pothole fixed. I think this is at the far end of, no one's done it before, because I think this is probably the best long-term approach. It's probably expensive, but I don't think Roger's coming up here with just ideas. I think it's because we're asking him to do it. I just wanted to remind the board.
Right.
I say continue.
Okay. All right, so you'll vet it through the AdCom, Randy,
Yes.
and then come back to us?
Yep, great. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Roger. Appreciate it.
Probably see you tomorrow.
I don't think
Yes.
so.
Hopefully, no.
If you can come up here so that people can hear you.
With your permission, sir,
Yeah.
may I?
Oh, absolutely, sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to share certain experience. I mean, we have scarce resources, and sometimes we have to, in Pakistan I'm talking about, we have to prioritize the thing. So what we do, we usually adopt the Pareto rule, and we just, 80-20 rules, we just prioritize the things. I mean, it says that 80% of the problem are due to the 20% reasons, or vice versa. So what we do, we just figure out the 80%, but again, at the same time, we just, for example, in the case of roads, we just don't repair all the road, but we repair the roads with the higher frequency of the traffic and with the worst conditions. So we make a mix and match approach to find a formula. And the second thing I just wanted to know more about this plan. I mean, how it is based on the road condition, and it is based on the loading or what the traffic volume or what.
Sure.
We actually have,
Good question.
on your schedule, time, I don't know if it's later this week or next week, Raj, but you'll be meeting with the director and going through this in a lot of detail, and he's actually going to show you the technology that provided it. And actually, members of the board, Pakistan was one of the nations that pioneered this pavement management system. And so you folks are kind of ahead of us on this, but we'll show you the way, our adaptation of it and compare it to what you're doing. Good.
And just, you may have said it before, but in Pakistan, I know you're a civil servant, but are you the police chief?
No, I work in planning and development department.
That was the other gentleman, yeah.
The concern for us, because we are underdeveloped country, we keep on developing, but at the same time we are not able to maintain our assets. So it is, again, we have to find a middle way. We have to develop and we have to maintain. So a middle way. So we keep on prioritizing the thing. Sometimes we can't develop each and everything which we ought to or we want to, but we have to keep a balance. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, we can get right into the warrant articles. This should have been at your table when you got here.
Just a reminder to the board, all you're doing tonight is deciding to include these articles or not. You don't need to take positions. If along the way you're inclined to do so, that's great. But future agendas will have these articles back on for the board to consider. So we don't have all the people here tonight to present them to you, but some people are here, and I am prepared to answer most of your questions, I think at least to the level of helping you decide whether they're in or out. And 90% of them, I think, are in the pretty clear category.
Okay.
I just had a question before we start the
Sure.
discussion. Tonight, the warrant is closing, right?
Correct.
Okay, if we're talking about changing annual town meeting to a Saturday rather than the second Monday of May, Is that a bylaw change? And if
Yes.
so, does that have to be done through a warrant article?
Yes, it does.
Okay, then shouldn't there be a warrant for
Oh,
this town meeting for December for
We did
that?
not have any direction from the board to do that.
Yeah. I think what we were asked is, and this isn't the first time we were asked last year, I think it warrants a lot of discussion. It would be nice if, I'm just thinking out loud, if it could happen in May, but if you're saying we need a town warrant article
Yes.
passed first, so separate from a special, it wouldn't happen in May.
Well, when you're considering something like that really alters the way we do government and will be clearly controversial. My suggestion to the board is always that you have a thorough vetting process where you socialize that idea amongst the other board and committee members, find out what the effect is going to be on their calendars, talk to different groups in town, and kind of get an idea if it has enough merit to put on a warrant. I don't think it's productive to put concepts on a warrant. Some towns do this. They sort of throw any concept on a warrant and they let these giant debates happen at town meetings that go 3, 4, 5 hours. And I think a far better process is if the board vets the idea as thoroughly as you can, gets to the point where you believe there's merit to it, and then you put it on a warrant so that you're 80% there and thinking an idea's time has come.
So when you were talking about changing it to a Saturday, it sounded to me like you were considering it for next year's town meeting.
Well,
And that was one of my things I was going to say. I think that's something that would take at least a year through hearings and stuff like that. So would not to be this town meeting, but maybe considered for 2014.
yeah, and just to be
Or
clear,
it could be a fall town meeting. It
Right.
doesn't have to be a spring.
and just so
Right.
that it's clear, I'm not considering it at all.
Right.
This is clearly board policy business. This is your bailiwick. At the appropriate time, you want a recommendation from staff, we'll always do that for you. But this is clearly board policy stuff. This is your baby, without a doubt. So we're not exploring it or doing anything with it.
Okay.
Okay. So what's the pleasure of the board? Do you want us to read every article, if someone could do that? Or have you read it and you just want to,
I think we just moved to,
I don't think there's anything in here that's controversial. It's funding contracts, zoning leftover from prior articles, prior year's bills. It's all, pretty generic stuff. Some of this you've already voted on. The only one that's in here that I think you might want to, by the way, I've got one in here, which is to give 30 days of paid time off for organ donors. We had that situation in the school department very recently. I don't know if you were aware of that. And I would have loved to be able to have done this for the people involved. We couldn't, but I don't think it's going to be a typical thing. Goodness, I hope not. But were it, this is a nice thing to do for people, because clearly if somebody does the unbelievably generous thing of donating an organ, they're going to have a recovery period. It shouldn't be the case they've got to use their own sick leave for doing something wondrous. So this is a legislative idea that gives them 30 days to recover from the donation, but they don't get charged their own sick leave. But that's something you might want to look at. The other thing is Article 9, creating a disability commission. I don't think that's controversial at all, but it's just something new I wanted to draw your attention to. And the last one that's not, I don't think is routine, is the Article 13 to create an affordable housing trust. So most of the rest of this warrant, I think, is pretty routine, or it's left over from the annual. Those three things are kind of new, and I don't want you to adopt this warrant without having it brought to your attention. Those are in there in case you do or don't want to include them. And there are folks to chat with you about those specific articles, because they are out of ordinary.
Okay. Okay, is there anyone here that has a specific article that they're going to present, so we know before we get into it? Sharon, are you presenting any of them? Article 13?
No, I just came because I thought you might have questions on.
Okay. All right, so let's start at the top. Article 1, it's the fire contract, and the Board of Selectmen is the sponsor of this article. Discussion?
These first three are all labor contract funding articles. Two of them are actually complete and awaiting funding. The police one is in negotiation, and we're putting it in preemptively, hoping we get it done.
I hope that's
Is that thunder?
Let's hope so.
That was the police.
Yeah.
Police department.
If it's not thunder, the options aren't too good, so.
So Article 1 is to raise and appropriate the funds in respect to the fire contract.
1, 2, and 3.
Article 2 is the police contract, and Article 3 is the highway contract. Motion on Article 1?
Motion to include Articles 1,
2 and 3.
2, and 3. Thanks.
Second.
All right, motion made to include Article 1, 2, and 3, the fire, the police, and the highway contract. Motion made and seconded. All those, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So motions for the first three are moved, 5-0. Article 4 is addressing an unpaid bill from the prior year from Mansfield, and it's described in the article.
Just routine. Sometimes bills come in late.
Motion to include Article 4 on the warrant.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion on Article 4? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
You've already voted 5, but if you want to do it again, but you already are on record as
Yep.
voting now.
Let's do it so a little cleaner on one meeting minutes. Article 5 is the town hall plans sponsored by the Board of Selectmen, and those are for the soft costs for the design of the town hall.
Motion to approve.
No, to
To
approve,
include.
but to include. Yes.
To include. Yeah.
Second.
Motion made by Mark, seconded by Linda. Further discussion?
Did we have
An amount.
a cap on this,
Yeah.
on the amount of money?
It's roughly $500,000. I can't give you the precise number. We're actually getting that updated, but it's approximately.
So before it goes to town meeting and
Yeah,
during the
the night
warrant,
we come back to actually present the article to you for a vote, we'll have a lot more specific information.
Motion to include Article 5 for the funding for the town hall plans.
The motion was made by Mark, it was seconded by
Sorry.
Linda. Under discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Article 6, I'm going to abstain from, even though this is a school committee article. Obviously, I'm the proponent with Turf's Up. So,
Move to include Article 6.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? 4, 0, 1 abstaining.
abstain. Thank you. Article 7, what Kevin just discussed, it's a Board of Selectmen article regarding the organ donor.
To
Motion.
include Article 7.
Motion made to include by Linda, seconded by
Mark.
Mark. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, moving it forward. Motion carries 5-0. Article 8 is, it's a little lengthy, but it's the water and sewer employees article.
This is the one this is the effect to create the DPW. This is the charter change necessary to create the DPW. And again, you've already voted this, but now you're seeing how it's actually going to be accomplished.
In the discussion that I recall, what we had was we were going to hire DPW, run it for a while, critique it, and then if all goes well, then we codify it in the town meeting. So I'm assuming that those pluses and minuses will be vetted out through the advisory committee.
And you've already voted the reorganization plan as required by the Strong Manager Act.
Yep.
You're required to vote the reorganization plan. You did that earlier this year. Roger presented it, approved it unanimously. Water Sewer Commission approved it unanimously. This now implements it by taking those employees and putting them under the town manager and DPW director's control.
Mm-hmm.
And does this keep the enterprise fund for water and sewer? That
Yes.
will remain?
Yes, and it does not diminish the powers or duties or authority of the Water Sewer Commission, except they are no longer the hiring authority for the employees. The employees now come under the staff. That's the sole change.
Okay.
Motion to approve Article 8, to include.
Second.
Motion made by Mark, seconded by Lorraine. Any more discussion on Article 8? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Article 9 is Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8J, sponsored by the Board of Selectmen, and this is on the Disability Commission.
You had a, by the way, a town meeting authorized disability commission that you appointed. The commission itself has asked that that be replaced with this. This is a commission under statute that's more formally recognized, that has more formal authority. It's still all advisory authority, but it's got much more formal authority than an ad hoc committee that's set up through town meeting. So they've asked for this.
Okay, a motion on Article 9.
Motion to include Article 9 on the warrant.
Second.
Motion made by Lorraine, seconded by Linda. Any more discussion? Article 9. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Article 10 is a Tier 1 assessment, and this is on a piece of property at 21 Market Street.
This is the funeral home that came into the town's possession by tax possession, and it is being considered for sale, but it won't be until the master plan is done. But we're trying to get a jump on it because you will not, if we decide eventually to sell it or commit it to different use, you won't be able to do that unless you've done a hazardous material assessment. And so these things, if they find something, can be very lengthy. Rather than wait, we want to get going on it right away. We own it, and so we'd better find out if it's clean. And where it was a funeral home, we really need to proceed this way.
Okay.
This is equal to like a 21E? Or can it be
is
used to
essentially
substitute for 21E at the time of purchase?
Tier 1, they're commonly called 21Es, yes. A Tier 1 basically looks at the history of the facility, determines what was used, examines records to the extent they're available, and determines if it is likely that a Tier 2 assessment is needed or not.
Okay.
All of it goes to DEP, and they have to determine if a Tier 2, which is borings and soil testing, if that's needed. If the Tier 1's enough, we're done.
Okay.
If it isn't, they'll require a Tier 2, and we'll be back for more money later.
Okay.
Okay. Do I hear a motion for Article 10?
Motion to include Article 10 for the Tier 1 assessment on the warrant.
Second.
Motion made by Lorraine, seconded by Mark. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries to move forward, 5-0. Article 11 appears to be a clerical with respect to zoning, striking the word "except as provided," and it's on behalf of the Planning Board by the Board of Selectmen.
These ones that we had at the end of our,
Sharon can tell you what it is, I don't know.
It's one of the articles that was carried over from last spring. It refers to a section that no longer exists because it's the section on use variances. On use variances, we wanted to make it very clear that use variances are not allowed under any condition.
move to include Article 11.
Okay, 11.
Second.
Motion made by Linda and seconded by Lorraine. Any more discussion on the zoning change? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0 to move forward. Article 12 is has to do with the floodplain overlay district.
Also
This is-
left over from the annual.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I move that we include Article 12 and 13. They're both left over
Second.
from-
No, 13 is multiple house
Is it
trust.
13?
Yeah.
Oh, that's one that you need for
That's
us.
the new one.
Yep.
Okay.
Article, I see Linda said Article 12,
Yep.
and I seconded it.
Motion made by Linda to move forward Article 12, seconded by Mark. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 5-0
And
to
I
move
move that we
forward.
include Article 13, which is, we've already discussed it anyway, so.
I second
But
that.
if someone wants a second.
Motion made by Linda, seconded by Mark. Further discussion? You want to second it?
Mark did second it, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Mark, can you withdraw
Oh,
your
you
second?
don't-
Because
Withdraw my
Ginny's been
second.
dying to second something. Let's try it again. Motion made by Linda. Do I hear a second?
Frank, make sure that says that.
Seconded by Ginny. All, more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Carries 5-0.
So, Mr. Chairman, you've approved the warrant intact, and thank you. If you can sign that, then it will be posted tomorrow and transmitted to the advisory committee immediately. In fact, I'm going to give Larry my copy tonight.
Okay.
and they can begin their work.
Okay. Now, we moved them forward, but we didn't take a formal motion to close the warrant article process. So do I hear a motion to close the public warrant article process for the December 11 town meeting?
So moved.
Motion made by...
Yeah.
I made it, seconded, right?
I made it. I just...
Motion made by Linda. You're right.
Seconded by
Go, girl.
Ginny.
Seconded by Ginny. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so congratulations, the warrant article process is officially closed, 5-0. All right, we are a little over schedule. 8 o'clock, we had a discussion on the craft organization negotiating team, and under citizens' input, Ian Murphy, it sounded like he was saying thank you, because of it seems like we're far apart in the process, withdrawing the notion to move. There was nothing formally submitted, but the liquor licenses and the what have you, and the citizens. So if anyone from the board wants to discuss it, we can. We certainly can do it now under this item.
At this point, I don't see anything to discuss. It's a dead issue. If they withdraw and everything, obviously that means they've withdrawn it from the planning board too, I would imagine.
I don't know that in the articles that they submitted to us.
Sharon, the people at home would love to hear this. Thank you.
I don't know that, Mr. Sullivan, and the articles that were submitted this year were largely identical to articles that have been submitted the previous 2 years, at least. So my sense is they're going to keep moving ahead on the zoning. It was something I believe they folded into the negotiations because they had a number of items on the table, but it was something that they had long before I started 18 months ago, been discussing this with the planning board, these items. So we'll see if they continue discussing the zoning.
Then maybe we should table it to make sure until they do that.
What?
There's nothing to
There's
table.
nothing
Right,
to
well, I
table.
mean, just basically it's a way to say, all right, it's over. But
Well,
if
it
they do
is.
continue to go through the process with the planning board, the board of selectmen needs to be involved.
No, we don't.
No, I
We
think-
never were.
Yeah, I think the reason that
In a
Board of
mitigation
Selectmen got
fashion,
involved
we would.
was,
No, we wouldn't mitigate that.
yeah. Our board has a purview to talk about liquor licenses, and if you remember before, they had housing and everything was into one area, and it got years back. Water and sewer could only vote on what they needed to vote for. Planning board and the zoning can only vote for what planning and zoning has the powers. And what was left over was the liquor licenses that we would support to town meeting, and the town meeting would vote on it. Everything kind of came together under this negotiating team process. But certainly if any applicant wants to go forward with zoning or housing or anything that is not under the purview of selectmen, again, there's a wall there. We don't need to dictate
not
or
part
be
of-
involved in that.
And it couldn't be part of our
Yeah,
negotiation anyway.
exactly. So we'll leave it at that. Certainly, the door's open. If things change on the liquor licenses and they want to come back, I think certainly a willingness to work and move forward. But I just don't know what they're doing with the big picture right now.
Well, I
so.
think it's what we've done, and I think it's kind
disagree.
of going back and forth, and it was, again, something that's going to tear the town apart, and they probably thought the best bet is just to let everything cool down and then, rework their plan or whatever, and then we'll talk whenever. I think it's a good idea, just because of the fact of where we were going as a board, and it was getting more and more complicated. But I think in the meantime, we could do some homework, and we don't have to push on like for a special time or a date now, but I think we do have to figure out from Dick and with guidance from Kevin, how we handle things like that going forward. Whether a negotiation with a developer or whatever should include one of us 2 of us, none of us, whatever, just so that we know that
Yeah.
going forward.
But I think, I mean, that's what we were going to talk about tonight, and I think
Right.
Dick did publish the correspondence with the Attorney General, so
Right.
it was clear coming in to hear what our options were, and I think we're going in that direction.
Yeah,
But-
that's why I'm not sure what we did, in terms of ending, them wanting to end it if we were.
Oh, I'm not saying that it was, no, but I do believe that there was communication, there was, we were all over the place, let's just say. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I was sitting at the table believing that we were kind of, we weren't agreeing, someone was shaking their head yes, someone was shaking their head no. I just think that at that point they, they're kind of giving us a break, I think, but
It may work out. I mean, if you look back, I mean, there was a lot of stuff in this package, and it was at a very difficult time with the casino, and there's certainly, every meeting, there's still groups on both sides that come up and down. And it wasn't one board. In other words, we can't vote for just the liquor licenses without knowing what's in the other pieces and vice versa. So certainly it's a breathing time if they want to reconsider. Maybe it'll be a little more streamlined. Anytime you're dealing with public process out in the open, it's not the same as working in closed doors on private negotiations. So if they don't understand it, they're new to it, but I know they're not, so they understand that. The process is difficult, and if breathing time helps everybody, so be it. But the door's open if they want to come back.
Right.
So.
And
And I hope they do.
The door's open for us if we need to go to them and discuss something too. I just think that it's best for the whole town to just kind of cool down a little bit, So, and it gives Kevin time to focus on something else, and Dick time to focus on something else, and our plate's full. So.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, members of the board, I just wanted to make sure that you had asked for me to follow up with Town Council and the Attorney General to get a written opinion concerning what Dick had told you verbally. And I just wanted to be sure you're all aware it did come in, and it did say exactly what Dick had said, which admittedly is peculiar. But I bring it to your attention more as an issue of giving you the assurance that what Dick represented was in fact what the AG said, and I think that's important for everybody to understand.
Okay. Very good. All right, next item, 8:30, a few minutes early, but the firefighter's grievance, non-payment of detail pay, and that is not under executive session.
No, Mr. Chairman, ordinarily, you would be having a full-blown grievance hearing for about the next 2 hours. Thankfully, you are going to be spared that. There is a letter, which I'm hoping is in your packet. Okay, if you can give me 1 minute, I will go get it for you, because I've got it on my computer.
All right, let's take a couple action items. We have the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from October 2nd.
I always look at Lorraine when this comes up.
I didn't find anything.
Want to approve the minutes of October 2nd?
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any other comments on the meeting minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Very well done. Thank you. Request for an extension of operating hours from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. on New Year's Eve for Showcase Live at Patriot Place.
With the impending liquor license violation, I think we should put this off until after our public hearing with them.
Okay.
I didn't see anything from the chief either, so I didn't want to vote on anything this evening.
There's 6, you're right, Mark, there's 6 liquor license violations coming up. Showcase Live is a public hearing on November 20th.
To the 20th.
November 20th. So that'll give plenty of time
Yeah.
for the hour extension if we vote on it on the 20th. So we'll do no action, well, it's up to the board, but no action.
No action.
Motion made, seconded by Mark. All those in favor for no action on hours extension? 5-0. Hacky licenses, Kevin Davis, renewal expiring October 30, 2014, so that's a 2-year. And Maurice Barcacci, a new hacky license expiring also on the October 30th of 14. And I think those were both signed by the chief, or
Chandler.
Chandler.
Tom Chandler. So moved.
Motion made to approve by Mark, seconded by Linda. More discussion on the 2 hacky licenses. All those in favor? And for the record, they were both, the fees have both been paid and marked on the application. So motion carries 5-0. Paula Bishop, Chairman of the Foxborough Cultural Council, requests the following appointments to the Cultural Council to serve 3-year term expiring October 30th, 2015, and that's Sam Jabari, Julie Jabari, and Lindy Chan.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion on the term appointment? All those in favor? 5-0. And thank you for their volunteer time. Mark Vonderberg, a request to give the town 6,000 square feet of undevelopable land in Foxborough, and attached to that request is some narration, and handwritten letter, and also the assessor's information with a map and the current zoning and parcel write-up. Basically, it looks like it's a 6,000 square foot parcel that's off of Spring Street and Davis Ave, that it sounds like he can't develop and no longer wants to pay the taxes on. So discussion on this unique circumstance.
Well, typically, the financial department would have something to say about it. Is there anything to be?
Oh, Kevin, this is the, Lisa's pointing to you. This is the 6,000 square foot parcel that the gentleman doesn't want, tries to sell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Taxes.
What we recommend is that you pass this over. Accepting a gift of land that's the owner doesn't want is something that really needs to be considered carefully. So what we're going to do is take that offer, circulate it to all town departments, and find out if someone has a use for it. If no one has a use for it, then I don't think we would recommend to you that you accept it, because if we don't have the proper municipal use, taking land simply for the reason of the owner doesn't want to pay the taxes is not a good idea. Now, we may end up owning it through tax default, but if that happens, it happens. It's not necessarily something we want to be proactive on. So we're going to take that. It actually is my bad that got on the agenda. If I'd been thinking a little quicker and hadn't been so crazy around here, we wouldn't have put that on until we circulated it. We don't have a policy on this, and we really need a written policy saying when we get this sort of thing, we send it to all departments for review. So that's what I recommend we do.
Okay. And I've seen this stuff come before as well, and people in taking it off the tax records, and there's issues with that and liability of taking something. So
Well, you want to make sure it's free of any standing liabilities. Is exactly what you want to do. Also, it butts conservation land here.
Yep.
I'm sure conservation do a thorough investigation on it. And it's either you take it or they don't pay the taxes, you can get it later. So you might as well be proactive sometimes. So.
all right. So Linda moves no action, seconded by
Second.
Lorraine. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. And item 6, we finished off at the beginning.
And the rest of these action items are all approved, Mr. Chairman?
They are.
I'll just send around the signature folder.
No. Showcase Live
Showcase is
was
off, and the land is off.
took no action.
I'll go through it. Kevin.
November 20th is we have the public hearing on that.
Okay.
We did not extend the hours
okay,
of
because
operation.
the chief did send in a letter
Oh, the
of
chief
comment, which, while I was out of the room looking for, I found what I was looking for. Does that letter matter, or?
I think they're in front of us for a public hearing because there's a violation.
So you want to hold
So to
till
give
then.
them an
Gotcha.
extension on it,
Gotcha.
I think doesn't make sense for the board.
Understood.
But I didn't get that letter from the chief. Could we get that in our file? Okay.
It was actually in the signature folder, but you didn't know that
Okay.
because it was just put
So,
in there at about
can
2
we-
minutes
we-
of 7.
So we're gonna have a hearing on the 20th, so I don't know if it's appropriate that we vote the same night on this. But can you put this in the packet, Kevin?
We will.
Re-put this in the packet with the police letter with it, so
And
we
with
have it on the
police-
20th.
Yeah, because you can have it.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a pencil.
Steal my pen.
Somebody stole my pen.
All right, we went back to
We got
Grievance.
the grievance. You had
You have
some
something on
documents for
that?
us, Kevin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the grievance, when we had the Country Fest concert this year, it was a back-to-back Friday, Saturday, and we were not able to process the fire department payroll for both days by the following Friday. We got one day out, but not the second. Firefighters grieved that. It was not the intent not to pay them, but on the Monday morning following a double back-to-back concert, we have literally thousands of checks to cut for all the employees that work those two details, plus the regular payroll. So the payroll department, frankly, is just overwhelmed. They just can't physically do it. So, but the firefighters legitimately would like their money, and the police officers as well who work those details. So what we've done is I worked out a compromise with them that I think will take care of the problem. What we will do is have the payroll staff come in either early Monday morning or Sunday afternoon with the clerical staff from the police and fire department, go through the payroll, make sure it's all correct, there's no problems, and then we're able to process it Monday and get everybody paid within the same pay period as when they incur the obligation. This grievance settlement is basically a letter to President Triani of the fire department. I'll read it to you. It basically says what I just said. Dear President Triani, the board has reviewed the above grievance with the town manager. The town is committed to ensuring that details are compensated in the following payroll period in which the detail is worked, including, if necessary, arranging for additional staff hours to process the detailed payments. We will make every effort to ensure that this error does not occur in the future. The town is committed to making sure that accomplishing this goal will not be for lack of effort. The board trusts that this will resolve the grievance. We have been told that this will indeed resolve the grievance, and inasmuch as there is no dispute whatsoever over what we intend to do, i.e. pay policemen and firemen within a week of them incurring the detail, we have no problem, I have no problem recommending this letter to you. It does not bind us in any way, but it states clearly our intent. And I apologize we don't have copies, but we were working on that literally till 10 minutes of 7.
Kevin, can you explain this again to me?
Sure.
That we have to have someone come in special to do
On overtime.
to make sure that the fireman, who's also going to come in and go down the list.
Just their clerical person who prepares the payroll, and the 1 or 2 clerks in payroll.
What time does payroll have to be somewhere on a Monday?
It's in here at 8:30 on a Monday.
Mhm.
The problem is we use a service bureau, and if we don't get it vetted, properly checked, and out the door by 3:30, then the checks can't get cut by the following Thursday, and so they get delayed by another week.
I've never heard of anything like this.
Just because it was back-to-back, 2 days' worth?
Yeah, the only time we have a problem is when it's back-to-back. When we have just a football game, a one-day concert, the UMass games, whatever it is, we have no problem getting the check out that same week. But when we have a back-to-back double concert, like the Taylor Swift concert or the Kenny Chesney Country Fest, it is so many records that have to be proofed on top of the regular payroll, which is almost 1,000 checks. There's just physically not time to do it. If we could say that every single payroll record submitted was in fact accurate, then we'd have no problem. We'd stamp it, we'd be done. But my signature goes on that, verifying under pains and penalty of perjury that it's accurate. The town accountant's signature goes on it, and the treasurer's signature goes on it, saying the same thing. And so I insist that they do what they do, and they do a marvelous job at it. And we do find errors. We find them all the time. That's not a criticism of anybody. That's simply the reality. When you process thousands of records that fast, mistakes are going to get made. And so we catch those mistakes, but it is physically impossible to process all that in basically 7 hours on Monday morning. It's just not possible. So the only way to do it, if we'd like to pay these people that same week they incur the obligation, is to do this procedure Sunday afternoon or early Monday morning. In other words, it needs a couple hours of extra time by the two clerks the one that generates it, actually the two that generate it, the police clerk, the fire clerk, and the payroll clerk who reviews it. You know, we're not talking a ton of money here. We're probably talking less than $150. So it's not a lot of money, but I think it's a sign of good faith that we're saying to our employees, we'd like to get this out to you.
And I'm a little taken back that, somebody's going to rearrange the way things have been done for years and years up here. $150, that's fine, Kevin, but do you understand what I'm saying? What I'm saying is that we've done it this way. The clerks have all done it. I don't know what happened to Lisa, but there was a mistake, and mistakes happen. And now we have a grievance because a mistake happened, really.
Well, remember, we've only had these back-to-back concerts for a couple of years now. This is not something we've been doing.
It was a Thursday and no.
Well, we've had Saturday, Sunday, and we've had Friday, Saturday, but we've only had them for a couple of years. And we were very reluctant, but we tried it. And I'll let people judge for themselves whether it was successful or not. But what I will say is, in terms of getting people paid those details, it cannot happen in the course of the regular day on Monday. So either you have two choices here tonight. If you agree with what that letter says and you make a motion to approve it and sign it, then the grievance is over. On the other hand, if you do not, then we will have to reschedule the grievance for another night, and the firefighters can put their case before you. Town council Labor Council will represent you in that matter, and then following a full evidentiary hearing, you can make a decision.
I get where you're coming from, Kevin, I get it, but I just wanted to air my view on it, that's all.
Sure.
I understand, a lawyer and more costs, but I'm just saying.
Understood.
So.
Okay. So here's a letter, we can sign it. We probably should make a motion to approve the settlement, so we can all sign it in good faith. Do we hear a motion to approve the grievance settlement as described?
Motion to approve the settlement of the grievance sent to the firefighters union in concurrence with the letter drafted by the town manager.
Motion made, seconded.
Second.
Motion made, seconded by Lorraine. Any more discussion?
So does this mean that down the road, if we have another back-to-back, like a Saturday and Sunday, and the payroll cannot be completed in time for Monday, that we'll be grieved again?
No.
No, because we're going to pay for extra, about
No.
6 people coming in.
That's what I mean. I mean, for that
So
next...
there better not be a mistake.
No, for that next time. Oh, so this was
This
just
isn't a
fairly...
procedure.
We have a
to have.
concert this summer, and right now, there's a couple that have likely to happen. Country Fest, Taylor Swift, as you know. And what this says is that we will do what it takes to get that payroll out. That's basically what it says. Now, if we were to fail in that effort, would the firefighters grieve it again? I don't know. I would presume they would. And the fact that we've made this offer kind of indicates that we're trying, but we're not obligated. Now, I would expect that the union will attempt in the next round of negotiations to have clear language put in the contract requiring us to do it, and then you'll be part of that discussion. And I don't want to get too deeply into that. That's labor negotiations. But this is a commitment. It's not a guarantee. It says plainly, it's our intention to do it, and it was. We intended to do it this time, but there were some problems with it. We didn't have time to get it done, and so we couldn't get it out. This says it's our intention to do it. Now we're going to do something different than we did before. We're going to commit some overtime money to review that payroll on Sunday or Monday morning so that it won't interrupt the regular payroll on Monday morning. And I'm very confident that if we do that, we'll get it out in time. I don't think we have a problem. It's not, as they say, rocket science. It's very straightforward.
Basically, you don't have to
Can't
wait.
be that straightforward if we had a,
There's some questions, and under discussion, I see Chief Hatfield raising his hand, and this is just a little bizarre
You
to...
guys just want to get paid that week, that's all.
Yeah, go ahead, sure.
You know, I don't want you guys getting the wrong idea. When we have a Saturday, Sunday detail, Saturday happens the following week, and that Sunday can hold off, and we can do that Sunday payroll later on, because it's a different week. When we run to a Friday, Saturday, like anybody that works out there in the world, that's considered the same payroll week. The biggest thing that I'll tell you is that we have, and I have, brought my secretary in on Sundays, when that's happened twice, to do the payroll on Sunday. The reason why this became an issue is because we had a flaw in the codes. Two different opinions on what code should be used, because it's all based off of codes when you deal with payroll and dealing with details. We've corrected it and rectified that. We've clarified it. We feel we have the right answers so that this wouldn't be a problem. It's not going to be as much overtime as everybody's painting the picture. The firefighters work very, very hard, just like the police officer, like everybody else works very, very hard. I'm not going to get into that. I don't think that what they're asking is unfair. I just think that we need to have a better plan, a better process. We have agreements between us as administrators on how to rectify that, and it's being done. But I don't want anybody getting the wrong idea about my people. I'm sorry. It's just...
No, they just want to get paid.
They just want to get paid.
ASAP,
Think
just
of
like
it
the
this
rest of
way.
us.
It's a small amount of money to maintain good labor relations. That's all this is about.
Yep.
Okay, motion made, seconded. Any more discussion? Yeah, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay, and at this point, before we go, let me just explain to our guests. There's certain things that we can talk in the public, and rightfully so, it needs to be talked in the public. There's certain things like negotiating property and collective bargaining where it protects the town or it protects the person that we're negotiating the contract with, that it's an executive session. Executive session, it's all public. We take notes, and then when the issue is done, then it becomes public, but it gives a little bit of a gap to let the process go. So at this point, we're going to vote to go into executive session where nobody can come here except for our table. So.
And the chief is going to give our guests a ride home. I promised I would get them home to their hotels by 9 o'clock, and
It's okay, it's fine.
we're going to be close.
Yeah. All right.
And they said they'd stay all night, to their credit.
You kept the promise, Kevin.
Yeah, I did. It's a little embarrassing.
We'll see you around. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it.
All right.
All right, so do I have a motion to go into executive session?
This is your role, Linda. You got this.
oh, I move to go into executive session to discuss,
Real property negotiations.
collective bargaining and real property negotiations, to exit, for the pure
Soul.
and solely for the purpose of adjournment.
Very good. Motion made, seconded.
I second
By Ginny. Roll call, Linda?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Mark? And I'll say yes, so 5-0. Thank you all, and
Frank.
have a safe night. Thank you.
See you in 2.
Yeah, okay, I hope that was
We off, Frank?
thunder.